And joining us right now on the HRNP guest line is a man who covers the San Francisco 49ers for NBC Sports Bay Area and the radio station KNBR up in the greater San Francisco area. His name is Matt Maiocco at MAIOCCO on Twitter. Matt, what's going on? Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure. A lot going on around the league, and looks like the Texans got their guy. So, and the 49ers lost their guy, but everybody here was kind of bracing for that, the departure of Demeco Ryans for the past year. So nobody's caught by surprise with the 49ers.
It doesn't seem that way. You heard it from Fred Warner himself in the post-game press conference after the 49ers lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm already getting emotional, give or take, he said, about the idea of Ryans no longer being here. So he comes in as a assistant in 2017. He works his way all the way up to defensive coordinator. As someone who's been covering this 49ers team for a while, what's your lasting impression of Ryan's time here with a 49ers team that sure has had a lot of talent and sure has had a lot of great coaches passing in and out?
I guess my lasting impression would be for a guy who stepped off the playing field, was away from the game for 1 year and then got into coaching. I don't think I've ever been around an assistant coach who was as popular and as respected by the players and probably by his fellow coaches as much as Demeco Ryans. He came in with the instant credibility of the players because he had played the game at such a high level for a number of years, and he was still, kind of a peer to them. He came in and he earned the respect of the coaching staff, some veteran coaches, because of how he approached the game, his willingness to learn, how he deferred to the older guys and just really went about it the right way. And then, of course, management could not have been more pleased with him and everything that he brought to the table. Nick Bosa told me a couple weeks ago, he's never been around a better assistant coach than Demeco Ryans. And the one thing he pointed to was he didn't even really talk about the X's and O's. He said he's got that down. But what impressed him was just how he handled people, how he knows when to push hard, when to back off. He just has a really good touch when it comes to managing, the psychology of a football player. It's a grind of a season, and it's never been longer. 17 games in the regular season now, and then 49ers season ends in the NFC Championship game, so 3 more playoff games. And he managed to find a way every week to keep it fresh and interesting and keep the guys motivated and on point and in the right mindset from the first day of the offseason program until the end of the season on Sunday.
Well, personally, as someone who has been somewhat dead inside watching the team that plays here in town, the Texans, over the last couple of years, Matt, that is all very good to hear. I have a question just about, I guess, credit pie, and I know that this is maybe just like a sports talk show host kind of question, but Robert Saleh was there as defensive coordinator with the 49ers for a couple of years before Demeco took over the last 2 seasons. I guess, how would you compare the way that those two coached? And if you were to, I guess, make a choice on who was actually the better defensive coordinator, who would you have picked?
That's kind of tough to say. I mean, both very highly respected guys, both knew the system inside out and were pretty good with people. Just based on what Nick Bosa had to say about Demeco Ryans, I think I'd give Demeco just a very slight edge from the sense of, he did play the game. He played the game at the highest level, so he's coming at it from that angle as well. And a lot of times guys who play 10 years in the NFL, they don't want to coach. They're done with the grind, the grueling seasons and all that. They just don't want to work those hours, especially with Demeco Ryans coming in on an entry-level deal. Obviously, he's going to be making a lot of money with the Texans, but you got to be committed to that profession. So I think from a defensive coordinator standpoint and the impact from the players, both very, very highly thought of, but I think I'd give a very slight edge to Demeco Ryans.
Matt Maiocco, who covers the San Francisco 49ers for NBC Sports Bay Area, also KNBR as well. We have seen some rumors about who Demeco may be bringing with him to Houston, and 49ers passing game coordinator Brian Slowick is going potentially to be interviewed for that offensive coordinator gig. Before we talk about Slowick, were there, Matt, a couple of coaches that you felt like were particularly close to Demeco who maybe are, in a great coaching staff that San Francisco has with Kyle Shanahan at the top, perhaps looking for a bigger role that maybe he would potentially bring with him here to Houston?
Yeah, I mean, one guy that comes to mind is Daniel Bullock, defensive backs coach, safeties coach, actually. Somebody who also played a little bit and is kind of tied into the back end. I don't think that, generally Kyle Shanahan tells these guys, go find your own coaches. I like my guys. So unless there's a compelling reason for a guy who wants to be in Houston as opposed to San Francisco, whether it's family or whatever, the 49ers don't generally let those guys go, or certainly don't want them to go. Bobby Slowick is a little bit different, of course, because he goes from being passing game coordinator with the 49ers to the offensive coordinator. And so the 49ers couldn't block that move for a guy who'd be going in there and calling plays. And to me, that's kind of the key piece of the puzzle for Demeco Ryans. Putting together his coaching staff, I don't think he'll have any problem putting together a coaching staff because he's coming in there with a 6-year contract. A lot of times, coaches, assistant coaches are reluctant to go with a first-time head coach unless they feel like the guy is in it for the long haul and the organization is committed. But the Houston Texans are saying, after 2 one-and-done coaches, it's very similar to Kyle Shanahan coming into the 49ers in 2017. 49ers had just gotten rid of coaches in back-to-back years, Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
And so you knew they wanted to hit a home run with that third one, and they were going to give that next coach a pretty long leash, and that is, basically evident by a 6-year contract. So I would think that Demeco Ryans, with the respect that he has in the game, will be able to fill out a pretty good coaching staff. And, whether he wants to hold on to those defensive coordinator duties and call the defensive plays or bring somebody in who he can kind of mentor and kind of get on the same page with while he manages the game, that remains to be seen. But that is not a concern, I don't think, for me, with Demeco Ryans putting together a staff, because I think he's well respected enough around the league that if you're a pretty good offensive coach or even a defensive coach, any assistant kind of coaching person who has some options, Demeco Ryans is a pretty good option there going to Houston, where he does have some stability and some security for a couple of years at least.
He is Matt Maiocco of NBC Sports Bay Area. Matt, really appreciate your time this morning. All of these things you've said about Demeco Ryans are getting us even more excited about the hire. Appreciate your time, and if there's ever something else that involves a San Francisco 49er coming from San Francisco down here to the Houston Texans, we'll be sure to have you on again.
All right, that's awesome. Appreciate the call, and I hope all is well. And I'm sure you guys and the all Texas fans will really appreciate and learn to respect and really like Demeco Ryans as the head coach.